It will. Welcome to Everything Sports on Tuesday. It's Jim and Matt. And Matthew, yesterday we kicked around the American League East, and we'll go back there as we move closer to things going on. But let's take a look at the Central. You want to start with the Detroit Tigers?
Yeah, Detroit really was. They got better this offseason. I don't really see a place where they got worse. They didn't really have anybody in terms of like a true notable departure. I was actually reading something on The Athletic earlier today, and they noted the Tigers' notable departure in that article as Andy Ibanez, a utility player. So
that's not losing much.
Yeah, no, it's not losing much. So you got better, you remained. At least you would feel like the same in terms of the Detroit Tigers on offense, which at times was a bit of a slower unit. It wasn't fantastic, but they also had their stars. Gleyber Torres played fantastic. When he was hot, Javi Baez was a image of his former self, and obviously you have Riley Green out there manning left field as really the anchor of that lineup. Where Detroit improved was in that rotation, just in terms of consistent depth. They added Framber Valdez. There's a solid number 2 option that you're going to get every time. You still have the young arm and Casey Mize as a part of that rotation. And then you went and added Justin Verlander in a homecoming, really, of what will most likely be his final season in the major leagues.
Right.
So they solidified the rotation while not losing a bunch on offense. And that's important because their rotation was the key to their success last year. Their pitching was the reason that they got to the places that they went. Like, it was their rotation was what kind of kept them afloat when that offense took a dip in the second half of the season, and to go out and make that stronger really kind of puts them back at the top of that American League conversation, because we do have to remember how good of a first half they had last year.
Yeah, they did.
And kind of have an expectation of some form of that coming back to Detroit this year.
And we would be remiss if we didn't mention Mr. Tarek Skubal, who is now a 2-time Cy Young winner and unquestionably probably the best pitcher in the American League, if not the best pitcher in baseball. He and Skeens. They did, and we talked about Verlander. They also added Kenley Jansen. And he's not. I'm not saying he's going to be the closer, but it never hurts to have Kenley Jansen on your team.
No, he's a guy that's pitched for a really long time. Now, I wonder, and I have a basic familiarity with him from his time in Boston. Right. But there was a little bit to be said about how bought in he was towards the end of his time at Boston, when he didn't really feel like they were trying to be a contender. I think that's fair in certain respects, but I also think it's fair that you kind of question, how bought in is Kenley Jansen at this point in his career? Is he willing to take on a little bit more of like a mentor role for these guys in that bullpen? Because that's where they need their help. Their help needs to come in the bullpen. Their rotation is going to give them plenty, but that's going to be a key piece to their season.
I can tell you, from a lot of players I know, I've spoken with Kenley Jansen a number of times, but I certainly wouldn't qualify as saying I know him. But I do know a lot of players who played with Kenley Jansen. They like him. He's kind of like they said, a quiet leader. He's not an outgoing guy. But he said that a lot of young relievers gravitate to Kenley, and he's very good about working with the young players. As a matter of fact, I had one scout tell me that he wouldn't be surprised if Kenley Jansen at one point in time in his career becomes a pitching coach.
Yeah, and that's all of the things like that's stuff that I was unaware of. I wasn't privy to that, and that's stuff that bodes well for Detroit in terms of who he can be in that clubhouse and who he can be in that bullpen as a little bit of a guiding voice. We talked about yesterday how much a top end rotation guy can do for a rotation as a whole in terms of kind of having everybody slot in there. Like it's a key aspect to a rotation because then everybody kind of fits their role, has their role, and
Mhm.
feels comfortable in it. Similar thing can be said for the
Mhm.
bullpen as well. When you have a guy towards the back end that you know is getting the ball in the ninth
Yeah.
and is a calming presence throughout that bullpen, it can do
Mhm.
a lot in terms of fitting these guys in instead of, maybe so and so is going to close today, maybe so and so is going to close tomorrow. We don't really know. It's kind of rotating.
Right.
But when you have that guy that's going to consistently get those ninth inning opportunities, it can fix a lot of problems that
Mhm.
you maybe otherwise feel a little bit lost or misplaced in a bullpen.
You mentioned about Boston and Kelly Jansen. Um, Max Scherzer told me once, I was asking him about how much do you mentor, young
Mhm,
pitchers. And he goes, he said, the funny thing about it, he says, I mentor them, but you have to watch the pitching coach. He goes, I go to the pitching coach first, and he never mentioned any specific names. He
mhm.
goes, some pitching coaches don't want you to do it. Some pitching coaches want you to be, that's their job, right?
Yeah,
And they see that if you're, mentoring them and they have different concepts or different ideas of what they want to do, then you become a problem.
yeah.
Um, and I said, how did you get around it? He goes, I won a Cy Young Award.
That that'll do it. That'll do it, and
Because if the pitching coach, he goes, he finished it by saying, I won a Cy Young Award, the pitching coach didn't.
Kenley Jansen was one of those guys that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but there was a year, and I can't remember exactly, but there was a year that he came, like, fairly close to winning a Cy Young as a closer.
Yeah, he was with the Dodgers. He had that happen a couple of times.
Yeah. And so in terms of a presence and just an overall, you know,
Mhm.
reputation, Kenley Jansen has earned that reputation and that right, regardless of whoever your pitching coach is.
He's often mentioned in the same breath as like a Mariano Rivera. Okay.
Mhm.
In so much as he, when he was a dominant, closer, forget it. You were not gonna, you know, you put him out in the mound 3 outs later, your game's over.
Yeah.
Um, and you can't do that forever. Uh, Rivera understood when to get out. Maybe Kenley didn't. I don't know, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that Kenley can't still be a help in the back end of that bullpen. And he understands, and that's the key, I think, to any good player is understand your role. If I can't, I may not use you in the ninth inning, right? But
Mhm.
as we all know, there's high leverage situations in the seventh inning, in the sixth inning.
Yeah.
It comes when it comes. If you can throw a Kenley Jansen in a high leverage situation in the sixth or seventh inning and still keep the bullpen, you still got your bullpen ready to rock and roll. That's not a bad thing to have in the pocket.
No, it's not, and he's a guy that's maintained his effectiveness, not
Mhm.
his velocity made him dominant.
Right.
That's I don't think that's anything that's disputed. This is a similar circumstance for Justin Verlander as well. Like
Yeah.
their velocity made them the dominant pitchers that they were,
Sure.
but the movement and location that they still have on their pitches make them effective later into their
Mhm.
careers, like they have been. And that still holds true. I mean, there were times where Kenley Jansen's been, he's been throwing somewhere in that 88 to 91 range with what is really just a primarily cut fastball that he has on him.
Mhm.
Um, and he's still effective because of the action that that pitch has on it and how hard it is for a hitter to pick that pitch up out
Mhm.
of his hand based on his windup as well.
Did you ever see Kenley in person?
I did not. Well, I watched him. So I did get to watch him when he was in Boston and they came to Atlanta.
Mhm.
I got to see his 400th career save.
Okay. He looks like a tight end.
Oh yeah, yeah, he's massive.
he is he is a big dude. I
Yeah,
mean, uh, going up to him and talking to him. I mean, man, you're looking up.
yeah.
He's a guy who could play tight end. I mean, he is that kind of guy. So even though, as you say, and I agree with you about the Verlander bit as well,
Hmm.
um, Kenley is one of those guys who is imposing on the mound. So yeah, velocity's bad, but he can still spot the ball.
Yep.
And if you become a painter, which is what Verlander, has become,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be key. And I think you're right. I think Justin is like, you know what? This is my swan song. I had a great time here in Detroit.
Hmm.
If I go out with the Tigers, then I'll go out with the Tigers.
Yeah.
Sparky Anderson, when Sparky won the World Series with the Tigers, um, said that you talked about them getting off to a good first start, first
Hmm.
half of the season. Sparky said, you can't win the division in April,
Yeah.
but you sure as hell can get yourself on a good track to win it by having a good start. He goes, it's so much more difficult to come back from a bad April than it is to come back from a bad May or a bad June.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when the lack of success carries into more of those summer months, that's when you
Mm-hmm.
start getting concerned about a team. Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can win it or lose it in April,
Mm-hmm.
but your momentum is something serious that
Mm-hmm.
is like a legitimate thing throughout the course of a baseball season. Like I think people tend to forget how good the Tigers were at one point last year. Like
Mm-hmm.
they were a runaway number one seed in the AL. Not only were they a runaway number one seed, they had a what was it like an 18-game lead?
I was going to say they had a 20-game lead at one point in
Yeah,
time.
at one point, and they lost it. They
Mhm.
lost it at the end of the year.
Yeah, they bailed.
That's
I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
that's how important the momentum is in baseball. Like you
yeah.
can be at those spots, but just because you're
Mhm.
at that spot earlier in the year does not guarantee you the same success going into the
No,
back half of the year.
no.
I would expect things to be different for Detroit this year because they went through it last year. Like that
Yeah.
that's something that they've now been through for the most
Mhm.
part as a team and as a clubhouse. Same
Mhm.
manager, a lot of the same pieces. You added some
Mhm.
veteran depth. You added some important parts in terms of adding to your rotation and their overall effectiveness. So you would expect them to continue throughout, and also honestly just benefit from what is a very weak AL Central.
Bringing up the very weak AL Central, I don't know. I have a feeling Kansas City might. I'm not saying they're going to win the division, but they might be a legitimate uh, playoff team as a wild card team if these young kids that they got and Bobby Witt and the whole group can get together and get this stuff done. I mean, they've got you know they don't really have a lot of superstars on that team.
Mhm.
Salvador Perez is a solid catcher. You got Miguel Garcia, who's a third baseman, who does a pretty good job defensively. So the right side of the infield is really tight. Um, they're from the off season. They got Lane Thomas. Will help the outfield. He's a good bat, but he also can play pretty much anywhere in the outfield. You can put him in center. You can put him on the corners. So they did some very small, a lot of small off season deals,
Mhm.
which I believe might very well bode well for Kansas City this year.
Yeah, and their rotation wasn't the issue
Hmm.
last year. They're going to come back. They're going to have a very strong rotation in terms of their guys. I'm curious to see how potentially age affects these guys in some of their rotation. Like, is Seth Lugo as effective? And to the same effect, they have a couple of young arms in Reagans and Cameron,
Hmm.
the lefties that are coming back, and they'll be a year older. It should play in their favor, their age. But they had an offensive production hole in the outfield last year.
Hmm.
They went out and they didn't feel like they needed to go for the big trade. The big trade was
Hmm.
out there. Um,
Hmm.
I know Boston tried a few times to get a Duran for something like a Reagan swap.
Right.
Seemed to be their price, which was too rich. And to be honest with you, I don't blame Kansas City for not taking that deal.
Hmm.
Um, but they didn't fully address it. They added Isaac Collins from the Brewers, a young
Right.
outfielder, and they added Lane Thomas. So those hope to help. Now, if you're in Kansas City, you're hoping that Jack Caglione kind of finds his stride in year two and finds that power stroke and is able to give you that offensive production from the outfield that you were missing. I also
Mhm.
have questions. Is Michael Garcia, what he did last year was very impressive. Is he able to continue playing at an all-star caliber level year in and year out? It's not something that he's
Mhm.
really done up to this point. You know what Bobby Witt's going to be. That's not going to change.
Yeah.
But as a whole, I wonder about their ability to produce offense, which is really a concern throughout the AL Central.
Yeah, I think what they did is they plugged a lot of holes.
Hmm.
Did they get better? I think here's where they're going to have to play. And I don't know if they can play this, right? This is this is a team that has to play small ball.
Hmm.
You're not gonna see them, there's not gonna be a lot of 3-run home runs in this, in this team. But they got if they can play good defense, and I think what they did in the additions that they made in the outfield. I know Lane Thomas, for instance. Lane Thomas is a plus outfielder. Okay,
Hmm.
he can play. There's no question about that. Isaac Collins is a solid outfielder. Okay, so you've improved yourself defensively. We already talked about the defense on the infield, right? Solid defense on the infield. If you can set up, get their bullpen straight, which has been a problem,
Hmm.
for a while. It's a problem for a lot of teams. They're not just the only one. But my key takeaway for Kansas City is if they can play small ball and and play solid defense, then they can win games in the Central.
Yeah, they absolutely can. I'm not so concerned about them winning games in the Central. I think that's going to be something that they're very capable of doing. I think they're
You're
built.
talking about outside the Central, yeah.
I'm more thinking about it. It's hard not to remember back in 2024.
Mhm.
They popped in 2024. They
Yeah.
had a really good year, and yet they got to the playoffs and they just got flat out hit by New York.
Hmm.
It's something that was there, and that's why really I think a lot of their success does lie on the shoulders of Jack Caglione.
Yeah.
Salvador Perez is another year older. Vinny
Yep.
Pasquantino is coming off an injury, and those were really the two of their bigger power threats. You
Mhm.
obviously have Bobby Witt. We talked about that, but they need a legitimate power threat. And it's something where if they don't get that power threat, then you're 100% correct. It is going to fall solely on that small ball. And can they
Mhm.
play that small ball consistently? And does it carry into the postseason? I know it can play throughout the entirety of a regular season.
Right.
My concerns are, can it win you games in the postseason?
Well, that really depends on your pitching, right?
Yeah.
You got to play small ball. You got to keep games close.
Yep.
So we'll see. Let's go to the Guardians. They didn't make any splashy moves in the offseason, but they have a core group of players that is pretty amazing. They just keep. I don't know. Cleveland perplexes me. I mean, you got Jose Ramirez, right? This guy is a perennial MVP caliber switch hitter. He's a lineup monster. From that standpoint, you got Quan, who plays left field. The guy's a great leadoff hitter. He's an on base machine. Naylor, his young catcher with a good offensive upside. Gabriel Arias, shortstop, really solid shortstop from that standpoint. Brian Riccaro, who plays second base. He's a good up the middle guy. So they're up the middle. They're good. They got a decent outfield.
Nope. Maybe we lost Jim. I don't know. Let's see. Give it a second. All right. Well, I'll just pick up on the Guardians talk. Yeah, they're overall a really well balanced team. In the offseason, they went out, they signed Jose Ramirez to that long extension that'll bring him back for really, I think, as long as he wants to be in Cleveland, which seems to be something that he has desired. Stephen Kwan, the outfielder, they chose not to sell him at the deadline. It was something they were seriously considering. They opted not to. Their biggest losses are going to come with their pitching staff, and it's nothing that they can control. Their biggest losses are going to be related to the gambling scandal with Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase. They no longer have the same presence on the back end. Hunter Gaddis is very good. He's serviceable or not serviceable. Hunter Gaddis is very good. Cade Smith, very good as well. They still have a very strong back end of the bullpen, but it's missing a little something without Clase. Their rotation now missing a piece without Luis Ortiz. Those were two legitimate contributors for that Cleveland Guardians roster. And without them, they will be felt. They didn't make any significant additions in the offseason to make them better. But in a way, I almost trust this Cleveland team to go out there and do the same thing that they've seemingly done year over year. And that's not really get any better in the offseason and yet somehow come out and put a winning product on the baseball field. Um, I remember, I think it was a year ago, in the offseason, they traded away Andres Jimenez to the Toronto Blue Jays. And it didn't matter. Their infield defense was fine. They had the plug and play prospects. They were ready. I think they went on a sell high and replaced with our prospects that we believe in approach there. So they'll be good defensively. I just don't think that with the lack of additions, they are anything close to what they have at the top of that division in Kansas City and Detroit. They have similar firepower, but they don't have the same rotation. Arguably better bullpens than Detroit and Kansas City, even with the loss of Clase. But they still don't have what it takes rotationally, I believe, to be able to stand up against those guys throughout the course of a regular season, especially not in a playoff series. And you saw that against Detroit last year. They came back, they stormed back, they won the division from Detroit after trailing by, 20, 21 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they ended up losing it in the postseason. They didn't have what it took to withstand in that wild card series.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my biggest concerns are with Cleveland is not offensively. I think they'll be fine offensively. I think they're going to put a pretty good product on the field defensively. I have questions about that rotation and a place that they just, quite frankly, they didn't get any better throughout the offseason in terms of their additions, and they had two big losses with Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase to those gambling scandals.
Mm-hmm. No question about it. We had a little technical difficulty on my end. Sorry about that, folks. Let's go to Minneapolis. The Twins. They've got a stronger rotation this time around, which is kind of the casual perception of what was last year's big time deadline sell-off. They got Pablo Lopez. He's their frontline right-hander. He's the anchor of the staff. You got Joe Ryan. He's a number 2 guy. I don't know if he's top tier, but he's there. I don't see much in Minnesota to make me excited about the Twins.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell the Twins are doing. Just quite frankly, it just doesn't make any sense to me. They were a team that sold at last year's deadline, and they had an opportunity.
They sold a bunch.
Yeah, they sold 11 players off at the deadline last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very significant gap in terms of what your average sell is going to look like for an MLB team. It just doesn't look like that. It was a very confusing move because they weren't that far off, I thought, if they really wanted to compete, but they were in some financial trouble. They were trying to sell, the ownership was. And so they sold off, and then they came out in the offseason and didn't double down on it. It seems like this is an organization that lacks direction after being in the wild card, winning the wild card 3 years ago. I don't know where they're going, but I hated the move to not continue selling this offseason.
Okay, I'm gonna jump to the Chicago White Sox. If you are a White Sox fan out there, and first of all, I pity you, but if you are, please God, Jerry Reinsdorf has got to sell this baseball team. The White Sox, there is absolutely no reason on this earth why the White Sox perennially are not contenders. And yet, year in and year out, this is an organization that is so on the cheap that it just baffles the mind.
Yeah, they're on the cheap, and that's after they had a successful window open up. The players that they had, the players that they spent on, ended up not really panning out long term.
Yeah,
but after that, they just kind of gave up, on baseball in general. This year, they feel a little less given up in terms of what they're doing. in what they did in the offseason.
Yeah.
Like I like some of the additions they made. I know he fell into their lap, but Munetaka Murakami is a guy who has power that
Yeah.
translates. He's got a high strikeout rate. That's important and that will
Mhm.
play. But he's still got upside and a relative unknown and a plus in the power department. They got rid of Luis Robert. That felt long overdue in terms of where they sold, but in return they got Luis Angel Acuna. Is he the best infielder? No, but he'll play a serviceable role. So when
Right.
you add that to guys like Chase Mydroth and Kyle Teal, some of their
Mhm.
younger players and younger
Yeah.
stars that are going to attempt to build around Colson Montgomery at shortstop, they have some potential. And it feels like even though they've been frustratingly bad for a while, I
Mhm.
still like where they're at as a ball club heading into the 2026 season more than I
Mhm.
do the Twins. At least they have a direction. They have young guys that they've chose to kind of
Right.
supplement.
I just, it's. Yeah, I guess what bothers me is when you see a major market team, okay,
Yeah.
like the White Sox, Reinsdorf, who has been, an owner of that team for decades, and the best thing I can say about him is I like their, you know, city uniforms.
Hmm.
I think they're the coolest city uniforms of all the major leagues. And by the way, just just throwing it out there in a totally off the hand of it, what the hell is Boston got those blue jersey? That's the stupidest looking. No, I
Yeah,
think
it's
I think probably the Padres have the. It's almost embarrassing for the Padres to wear those uniforms. I'm sure the players don't want to, but what uh, the Boston Red Sox with blue jersey? What the hell is that all about?
yeah, the blue and yellow colorway is since so they're called this like the City Connects,
Yeah, the
right?
city connection, which is why I
And
said the White Sox. My favorite thing about the White Sox is they've got the coolest city connection.
yeah, and that's an ode to the Boston Marathon. Those are the marathon's colors, and that's the purpose behind those jerseys.
Okay,
Um, yeah,
that's a lovely sentiment.
yeah, doesn't necessarily make them look any better, but hey, they win in them, so I'm
All
fine
right,
with
well,
it.
okay, fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
point. The I don't know if you've seen the San Francisco ones, right?
Oh, I'm not a fan of those.
I've got a nephew who is grew up in the Bay Area out there, Stanford graduate, and a lifelong Giants fan, and he absolutely when they put those uniforms on, he just turns the television off. It's just they have the. I mean, that's one of those things where you get so clever that you make a stupid mistake. And that what they had is they wanted to roll that fog into it.
Hmm.
So part of the back of the jersey is kind of like, gone. So you
Hmm.
can't really tell if numbers is number 33 or number 32 or number it's like who, thank God they've got names on the back of the jerseys, but otherwise you wouldn't know what's going on with that team.
Yeah, and I mean,
Do you have a
it,
favorite jersey of the old, the city connection stuff?
I
I mean, they're
really like.
stealing the stuff from the NBA, basically.
Yeah, I really like the Washington Nationals, but
Oh, okay.
before they changed it, when it was that pink floral with the gray, I like
The
those a
cherry
bit.
blossoms.
Yeah, those I think the Diamondbacks are solid as well.
Hmm.
Which the newer ones, because if I remember, the newer ones are more that ode to the Randy Johnson years,
Yeah. Hmm.
that blue and that greenish,
Yeah.
or the purple and the greenish.
Purple, right? Yeah. It's
Yeah,
the Washington ones were. It's WSH was on the front, and it had
yeah.
the cherry blossoms in there, and that didn't offend me, much. The Dodgers' entire blue uniform is not, you know,
It's
is not
interesting.
is not offensive, but it's not great either. I do like the hat though. I like the
Yeah,
bit
they
the
did.
G.
They did better with the one this year.
Mhm.
It was that white with like that speckles stuff on it.
Right. Yeah. But man, that
The Mets are bad. I don't like the Mets.
oh
Not a
man.
fan of the Mets. I feel like in with these City Connect uniforms, it's something that they tried to do. A lot of them are misses though. Like
Oh
a lot of
man,
them are missed.
90% of them misses.
Yeah. I think Miami's
That wasn't a bad one.
Yeah, the sugarcane ones they had, that
Yeah,
wasn't bad. Atlanta's is pretty much they just brought back the jersey from, like, the '80s.
I
Uh,
like that.
yeah, which was good. I think people liked that in terms of just kinda throwing it back to what people consider to be some of the golden years of the Braves, and, like, it was just a good look. They didn't try to do anything too much with it, they just threw it back.
I will tell you, I have had so many players, friends who tell me in Philadelphia, they love that blue uniform with the 1980s, which actually is the '80s one that they were wearing, which is blue with the large P on the front,
Mhm.
um, is actually the away uniform.
Really?
Yeah, but they love it. I mean, they absolutely love wearing it. And a couple of years ago, the Nationals decided that once a year on Canada Day, they would wear the Expos jerseys.
Mhm.
And man, the players loved them. Those old. I wouldn't. I mean, there were some really cool uniforms back in the '90s. I would go back and. I'm sorry, the '80s. I'd go back to those '80s uniforms in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and when you started talking, I thought you were gonna talk about Phillies, because they have the City Connects too, and they're like
Right.
blue and yellow.
Yeah.
And
They're.
again, not a fan of those. Feels like
No,
another miss there, but no, the
it's like a
light blue,
softball uniform.
yeah, the light blue, throwback Phillies uniform is fantastic. It's a great look. I love that old P. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Still got the pinstripes on it. It's a fantastic jersey, and you are correct. They do love them.
Mm-hmm. And it's they use them on Sundays. I think that's what they've been doing. Although there are sometimes they do use them during the week as well. But it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch them. It's fun to watch and see how they play with those uniforms because I remember the Pirates back in that time had a combination. Get this, they had a combination that you could use that they could come up with 9 different combinations out of the one set of uniform, which was the We Are Family Willie Stargell World's 1979 World Series team's
Mhm.
jersey. They had that gold with black pants. They had all black. They had all gold. They had white with pinstripes. They had the hat with the little the old circles around it, which was an ode to the 1800s stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean those were cool. The Expos. I've always loved the Expos hat personally. I thought that was the
Yeah.
coolest the hat in baseball for many years. I actually had a couple of those hats. I have no idea where they are now, but I had them back in the day. But yeah, those uniforms were fun. Boston in those days had a very it was a very very white uniform with
Mhm.
the red Boston in front and then the Red Sox on it. It was a very it was a very crisp, clear, clean uniform. It was very fun to watch. That, and of course, Boston has had years and when they've had names on the jerseys and years when they haven't. I think they've had more years without names on the jerseys than when they've had
Yeah,
actual.
I think it is without. I think you're correct on that. Not 100% sure, but it is something
The
I
Yankees the same way. The Yankees have never had names on the jerseys.
yeah, and I'm fine with that because then you get I feel like the numbers resonate more and you remember the
Mhm.
numbers a
Right.
lot better without the names. Like you then associate the numbers with the names. Like you're
Mhm.
always kind of going to associate a number with a name,
Mhm.
but when things change as quick as it does in baseball, like heck, for the Red Sox, Marcelo Meyer is wearing 11 this year. That
Mhm.
belonged to Rafael Devers last year.
Mhm.
Uh, but the numbers mean a little more when you don't have the name on the back of the jersey. Two, when you talk about two in pinstripes, you know
Mhm.
exactly who I'm talking about.
Right.
So,
And um, who was I forget the kid that gave up his jersey to uh, oh man, I'm trying to remember the young player's name. Um, uh, shoot. Um, when Otani got to the Dodgers, he was number 17.
Oh,
And
was it Joe Kelly?
yeah, was Joe Kelly. And I thought it was funny because Joe Kelly's wife on Instagram said, give him the jersey, give him the jersey. And Joe Kelly comes out and then says to Otani, as a, you know, coming to the team, I'll give you the jersey. Because for a while there, it was like, yeah,
Mhm.
there's no big deal made about this stuff, right? But
Yeah,
it's like, you want to be a player, you want to be a guy on the team who's, it's one thing if you're Joe Kelly and the other is Otani, right?
yeah,
So Otani, there's a knock at Kelly's door. Kelly's wife goes to the door, answers the door, and it's the Porsche dealership. And the guy hands her the keys to a Porsche that's sitting in her driveway, and said that this is a gift from Mr. Otani. He wanted to make certain that you got this for giving him the number. So Joe Kelly got nothing, but his wife, because her campaign on Instagram was Joe give the thing, give the thing away.
yeah,
You know, it paid off. But numbers to some players mean a hell of a lot
yeah. They absolutely do.
in all sports, frankly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like it's something where there are some guys that like vehemently like they need their number. You think about I think LeBron James is probably a pretty good example of this. Everywhere he goes, he was getting 6 or 23
Mm-hmm.
if he wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and there's just these like random stories of these guys in these clubhouses who will come
Mm-hmm.
up like if they sign a veteran guy that's
Mm-hmm.
been around for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be up to sometimes the club steps in, sometimes they just leave it straight up to the players. They're like, hey, this is
Mm-hmm.
your thing, you got to deal with it. But for some people it's like something that is a significant thing. I mean, heck, there are guys asking in their NIL packages for football for guaranteed numbers.
Um, oh man, that's yeah. We were talking the other day of some friends and I. Um, I had a couple of people ask me why don't they refer, in football especially more than any other sport. Why don't they refer to the player's name, but they always call them by their number? And I said, well, if you go out to college, right,
Hmm.
you watch college practice, and you got 100 guys on the team, everybody automatically knows 47, 23. Even when Brady was, when Brady's around the league, right?
Yeah,
You would have opposing coaches say, well, 12 is a tough guy. We got to be. It's not like they didn't know it was Tom Brady,
yeah,
okay? But it's just it's a mentality, right? It's
yeah,
it's a not players by numbers, and a lot of times that's it because coaches know the numbers. They know that number. They know that
yeah,
number. They don't. Do they know who's in that jersey? Of course they know who's in the jersey. But when you're dealing with 100 players on a team, or even for that matter, 53, you know, you know, you put together a game plan based on numbers.
hmm,
So jerseys, you know, that's where jerseys begin to. I think when you really start, maybe basically in high school or in baseball, maybe it's youth league, whatever. You have that number, and that's your lucky number, and you want that number as far up the road as you can get.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. People, I feel like it's one of those things where it either has some form of significance, or you pick that number when you were 5 years old
Yep.
and you've just stuck with that thing all the way through, and there wasn't any change in it. So,
Yeah, and sometimes it's guys you watched when you were growing up, right?
hmm,
You want that number because that was the number your guy had.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And so, I remember Bryce, they were wondering, what number did he want? And the guys that he were, his the guys he really identified with, which was because he's a baseball historian. Mickey Mantle was somebody he really liked. That's
Hmm.
number 7. Okay, he could have had that, and he
Yeah.
also was Pete Rose, who was number 14. So he ended up, using his. He ended up going with 34. So he got the 4 from Rose, the 14th, and then add the 3 and 4 together, you get 7. He got his, he got Mickey Mantle, and then whenever he came to Philadelphia, that number had, I forget the player who had been killed in a plane crash, who was a Philly pitcher.
Holiday.
Yeah, Holiday. That was Holiday's number, so he went to number 3.
Yeah.
So, in honor of Holiday, obviously, he did not want to take Holiday's number. So,
Yeah.
random things on a Tuesday afternoon here. Did you ever have a specific number that, or when you were playing baseball or playing any sport as a kid, that was your that was your number, or a player who was your favorite player who that was that meant something to you?
No, I never picked my jersey number off the player. For some reason I had an affinity for, like, it was either 21 or 22 always.
Really?
Yeah. It was one of the two. And it was typically 21, but 22 was always the backup option because I was told I needed to have multiples. So,
So 21 or 22 was the number, and it had
yeah.
nothing to do with the player; it just had to do with that was the
No,
number
I
you
just
were.
I just like the numbers for some reason.
Because I thought for a minute that you were going to tell me Roger Clemens was was your guy.
No, 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 no. No, if I was going based on, I would have been 34 or 15. It was either going to be PD or Poppy, one of the two.
No, you pick good guys. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
if you're going to go for Big Poppy,
Yeah.
and you know,
And I didn't really have the power to wear 34 like he did. So
I I'm still trying to get my hands around or my head around guys who are wearing. I grew up in the age when numbers in the 60s and 70s were guys who were, you know, you saw in spring training, right? It
mhm.
wasn't, but now you've got pitchers who have single digit numbers,
You have pitchers who have zero.
got guys who have number, sorry?
You have pitchers who are wearing
Yeah,
zero as a
yeah,
number
yeah,
now.
true. You got linebackers wearing 0.
Yeah.
You
Heck, you
know,
got some
you
people
got,
wearing double zero.
yeah, it's true, true. And look at how many guys have gone back to when the NFL decided, the NFL had a rule, okay, for a
Yeah.
number of years where you had to, if you were a specific position player, you had to wear a specific number. If you were if you were a wide receiver, you had to wear a number in the 80s. If you're a running back, you had to wear, or defensive back, you had to wear in the 20s. No
Hmm.
quarterback could have a number above, I think it was 20. And that was the way it went. But then when they got rid of that, you saw a lot of the guys who went back to their college numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got, like, I'm still a fan of, I like seeing, like, the single digit numbers
Hmm.
on. I think to wear a single digit number, at least if you're in football,
Hmm.
is you have to be one of the best players
Hmm.
on your roster. Like, I don't want to see an edge rusher out there wearing number 7
Right.
and stinking it up like, you don't need to be put on your ass every other snap if you're an edge
Right.
rusher wearing 7. Same
Right.
way if you're like in my head, I'll just give you this example. At Georgia, if you wear number 3 as a linebacker, you
Hmm.
better play your ass off at linebacker. You better be a fantastic linebacker if you're going to wear number 3 to play linebacker at the
Hmm.
University of Georgia now. And I say now because it's something that really, like, since Kirby Smart got there, but Roquan Smith wore it first for Kirby. And
Hmm.
when you start with Roquan and then you start cycling some of these guys through,
Right.
number 3 means something. Same way number 11 means something at Penn State if you're playing
Yeah.
linebacker. The same way number 7 means something at LSU.
Hmm.
Like, there are these certain numbers that need to be reserved for these guys who are the best at their position on your team. Like, they don't need to be just the best at their position. They need to be one of, if not the best player on that side of the football.
It's funny when Spurrier was at Florida. Um, he unretired his number
Hmm.
and he gave it to Javon Curse. And he said the reason he gave
Good
it to
choice.
Javon, he said the reason he gave it to Javon was he said Javon had, when he came to the, he had his first year was not great.
Hmm.
And it was a great deal of it was because of, uh, he had members of his family who had either had an illness or and passed, or and it was more mental than it was anything else. I mean, there was a
Hmm.
lot of things going on in this kid's life that he could have easily gone the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't. He stayed the course. He used football as an outlet, and he became better as a person and as a player. And to reward him for that, Spurrier um, didn't make a big deal out of it. Just said, "You're going to wear number 11." And Chris goes, "Wait a minute, that's last time I checked, that was retired." And Spurrier
Hmm.
goes, "Yeah, it was my number. I can unretire it," and he did.
It's my
Uh,
choice. Yeah.
but it was his choice. And so, yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to wear a certain number, you better damn well be able to back it up.
Yeah. Like I think about some of those guys on that Ohio State defense and how good some of them were
Hmm.
this year, like Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. They earned the
Hmm.
single digits playing linebacker.
Sure.
Caleb Downs, every right to wear number 2 as a safety.
Hmm.
David Igbinosun, you're wearing number 1. You're the top corner on your team. Go ahead. That's
Hmm.
that's good. It's good by me. So yeah, I'm fine with you. I'm fine with them wearing them, but you better have earned that single digit number if you're
Hmm.
wearing it on defense.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of players that you look at, and you know the number, and that's the first thing that. What about running back at Georgia? My God, that there's a group of numbers there that
3 as well.
yeah,
The number 3 as well.
yeah, you got to be careful when you're doing that. I mean,
Mhm.
there's just it's just a fun thing, right? I mean, it's a little thing, but it's something that you identify with,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I
like
think that's important.
Nate Frazier at Georgia has been he was a 5-star freshman coming in. He's been
Hmm.
really good over these last couple of years, but he really I followed the stuff that he puts on social media, and like he really loves the University of Georgia. And he is a guy that absolutely has earned every single right to wear the number 3 at the running back position, considering the last guy to wear the number 3 at the running back position was Todd Gurley.
Right, a guy who unfortunately had a number of injuries that didn't help him out.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, he was talent wise. Todd Gurley he's one of the best to ever wear red and
Hmm.
black. One of the best really to ever play the running back position in the NFL. That offensive player of the year season that he had for the
Hmm.
Rams was fantastic. I loved watching it.
Hmm.
He was he was great and hurdled people at an unprecedented clip. Ridiculous. But I'm a little bit partial because I think he's probably like the running back of my childhood, but it's either him or no Sean.
Well, I wouldn't go my childhood, but my professional career, um, I think I'd have to go with Bo Jackson. Um, I I wouldn't want to get in front of him.
No.
Um, Bo and oh man, let's see who else. Oh, I was gonna say Ricky down in Texas, but I I don't know. I think that Bo Jackson probably would be there. Barry Sims, another one. Um, I it's like his ankles were on. you know, he could. It's like his ankles broke. It's like you saw
Mhm.
him running, and then all of a sudden you're like, "How did he go in that direction? It's impossible. Physics, it defies physics that someone can move in that direction." And to walk away from the game when he did, he still had years he could have played.
Yeah.
He
And,
just
and it's
didn't play
interesting
anymore.
because you have Barry Sanders, you have Calvin Johnson.
Mhm.
Those are two guys that walked away from the game early.
Mhm.
Um, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't say it started a trend, but it's given it's given some players a model
Hmm.
that when they have enough self-awareness, they're able to walk away from the game at the
Yeah,
right time.
and so many don't. But
Yeah,
you know, Barry's. I mean, Barry didn't walk away because he was in trouble of any sort.
yeah.
He walked
It's
away because he just, he goes, it wasn't fun anymore.
yeah, and there are guys now. It's become, I'm not gonna say popularized,
Right.
had bit more common recently, I would say. Luke Kuechly walked away when it was time. Andrew
Hmm.
Luck walked away when it was time. Like these
Yeah.
aren't you hear Joe Burrow talk and he sounds like a candidate as a guy who might just like he might walk away when it's time based on some of his injury history as well.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, you got to know when to go, right?
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, let me play this spot, and we'll be right back afterwards. That's our buddy Zach Bobo, and we hope that if you need a home in the greater Atlanta area or anywhere in the Southeast, get in touch with Zach. He's our guy. He supports us, and we are happy to have him supporting us. So, by all means. So, anyway, well, we've gone through the AL Central. Tomorrow, we'll go out west, and we'll start talking about some bracketologies. We're getting closer and closer to you know, most of the teams have about 4 more games left in the regular season before they hit tournament time.
Something in that neighborhood. Let's see. Let's see what I'll just click on the first team that pops up here. Good lord. So it appears that they have about 6 games left in the regular season. Most teams
Like
do.
I said, more than four. um, yeah, there's 6 games left, and right now, everybody on the one lines the one lines look like UConn and Michigan are locks on the one line.
Hmm.
For There'll be others that'll be there, but those are your locks on the one lines. The
I think
others,
Arizona might be also
oh,
kind
100%. Yeah, I
of locked
forgot.
into that one line as well.
I have a mental block against, for some reason, Arizona. I don't know why. So yeah, they're probably a one line. And the seeds are, they're kind of, you got 6 different, people on the deciding what the bracketology is. I tend to believe Ken Palm more than anybody else, but that's just
Hmm.
me. Um,
Yeah.
and Ken Palm has Arizona, like you just said, Michigan, and UConn on the one line across the board there. So not a bad situation, but we'll play with that a little bit more tomorrow as we go out west, because out west this year, God knows what's going to happen out there.
Mhm.
I got that American League West is just, other than Seattle, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah. No, there's been a significant the Texas Rangers they're going to roll out the white boys. You got Houston not really doing a whole lot in free agency as
They didn't
well.
do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, they still have an infield surplus as well that they didn't address.
Hmm.
So there's that, and then you got Seattle that got better. The Angels, God bless them.
I think the question to me, right, is is Mike Trout gonna it to a playoff before his end of his career? If
I
it
would,
is it gonna be in LA?
yeah. I think everybody hopes that he would. LA. I think
Mhm.
everybody wants him to get his World Series, kind of cement because I mean he
Mhm.
was the best player in baseball for like
Yeah, for a long time.
a decade. It felt like.
Yeah.
Um, And injuries are one thing, but the inability to put a roster around a guy who has been fantastic and loyal to your franchise has been something that LA has failed. The Angels have failed Mike Trout.
Well, I think that in fairness to Artie Moreno, he tried. I mean, he spent
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
boy, they have the wrong guy running the ship because they spend it in the wrong spot every single time somehow, with the exception of Shohei Ohtani, and then they just couldn't bring him back.
right. And
So,
the thing with I mean, they put when they put Albert Pujols out there,
hmm
and he was the big name. I mean,
oh yeah,
they threw a lot of money at Albert,
yeah.
and
I
you can't.
completely forgot about that for some
Yeah.
reason.
Well, they got the kid. I forget the kid's first name, but Wilson, who was they got the top pitcher and the top hitter in the off season that year,
hmm
and didn't make a dent
Yeah,
in what happened. And
which is
that was back
wild.
when who was managing the team back in that at that time. Um, uh, I want to say the former catcher of the Dodgers. Um, hmm, who did manage them? I think it was managed the Angels. The answer to the question is Joe Girardi. So
Really?
Girardi was a manager
When?
back in 2014.
Hmm. Prior to his stint with the Yankees?
Yeah. Mhm.
Interesting.
Well, Girardi managed the Marlins before he managed the Yankees.
Yeah.
So anyway, um, yeah, they. I mean, you can't fault Artie. I mean, he's tried everything humanly possible. He just had a front office that's a total disaster.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do, and this is the same argument you could make for Chicago, right?
hmm
The White Sox. They don't understand that baseball is run, whether you like it or not, by people who understand analytics,
hmm
and they don't. They didn't. They've never invested in it. They never really did. I mean, Joe Madden. I talked to Joe after his stint there, and he would never say anything bad. That's just not Joe's way of doing it. But he just said that he got out there and he couldn't believe how many members of that front office had no clue what when he started talking about what's the he had been working in that system with the Rays, all that analytics stuff,
hmm
and they didn't have it in Los Angeles in the Angels organization. They didn't. They didn't believe in it, or they just chose not to do it. That's
Yeah.
whatever you want to say.
I'm also curious, like what factors play into being the little brother in a big market? The Angels, the White Sox,
Yeah.
the Mets, like they've all like they've had their successes over the years,
Mhm,
but relative to the other teams in those cities, the Cubs,
mhm.
the Dodgers, the Yankees, like they're just not the same. And I'm curious on the dynamic of like how does that work? Is that something that players view? Is it something that starts from the top? I don't really know.
The funny thing about it is the Angels. Uh, well, in fairness, the Mets as well. The Angels are usually a top 4 or 5 draw in baseball. I mean, they're up there.
hmm
They've got a loyal fan base, so it's
Yeah,
not like nobody shows up.
yeah,
And there was a run there in the '70s, '80s when the Angels were very, very good,
hmm
and actually they were better than the Dodgers in that at that point in time. So there's there. I assume there is a little bit of that little brother aspect, but um, the distance between Dodger Stadium and Anaheim is actually further away than Nationals Park is from Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Um, it's really not as close as I mean they say LA, but frankly they're in Orange County, so they're in Anaheim. They're not. They're. I can tell you for a fact because I got booked one time, came into LAX and had to go do an Angels game, and it cost me $87 in a cab ride to get to Anaheim. So I know I can tell you it's not in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's only about 7 miles from Yankee Stadium to City Field in out on the island.
Yeah.
And then the south side of Chicago and north side of Chicago aren't that far apart either. So their closeness is kind of a cool thing. But I don't know. I mean, I think the White Sox, when they had Tony La Russa as their manager, that was they were on they were a solid team. I think it just is the sense of the organization, right?
Hmm.
Um, the Mets have had their days. They'll never be the Yankees, you know.
Yeah.
Um, the Angels will never be the Dodgers, and the White Sox will never be the Cubs, no matter what they do. Um, they can play hard, but the point that I was trying to make with the White Sox, which is the same point you could make with the Mets, and we talked about how Artie was doing his best to make to do what he can do. Is if you're in that market, you've got money. It's not like
Hmm.
there's not money there.
Yeah.
Um, so they should be doing better than they do.
Yeah.
Um, and so, at one point you wonder if Artie would part with Trout if he felt that that would be the nice, to give him a shot. So, but at
Which,
that point in time, you don't know how much mileage is left on Trout's body. He's taken a lot of beating over the years.
if I remember correctly, I think they had told him that they would be accommodating in a trade if he so chose, and he chose to stay in Anaheim.
He did. There was a push to bring him to Philly a couple times because that's
Hmm.
where he's from.
Yeah.
Um, and he's to his credit, he said, "Look, we've got Angel fans. They come out, and I'm not going to do it." So there's a lot to like about Mike Trout
Hmm.
as a person and as an old style ball player. He's not chasing the ring because if anybody could chase a ring, Mike Trout could chase a ring,
Yeah.
and he's not doing it.
Yeah.
So you got to give him credit. And as many Angels fans will tell me, at least he's not a Dodger, so they're okay with that. They just like to see him get a chance. Not they don't even care about World Series. There's just get him to the playoffs
Yeah. Yeah. Let him get. He's only been there. Has he been
once.
there? I was going to say it's once, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah. It's been so long. I genuinely did have to sit there and think if he had been there at all. I thought
yeah,
he'd been there once, but
yeah.
I had to sit there and think about it. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a while.
It's
He's a
it,
guy that deserves it too.
yeah, he does. He does.
So
All right, well, we're gonna have some fun tomorrow. Do a little bracketology, and then we'll come back and talk some baseball too. But yeah, we're getting close to that fun time of the year when college basketball games really start to mean something, and
mhm.
they, down the stretch here, we'll see some fun stuff in college basketball this year. Some good teams, some very good teams,
Yeah,
and a lot of them. So we'll see, which makes for good conference tournaments and then good NCAA tournaments.
yeah,
We'll see how that plays
absolutely.
out. All right, gang. Have a lovely Tuesday. We will be back tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Take care, everybody.